Welcome back to another episode of SNEED-CAST Industry Update, our series that keeps you updated with our ever-changing industry. For those of you that have been watching this series for a while now, you know how this goes, but for those of you that are new, welcome. We'll be covering the latest in manufacturing, packaging, coding, sustainability, and much more. I'm your host Alexa, and today we'll discuss topics ranging from how CPG brands are rethinking capital investments in response to rising tariffs, to the ongoing battle between EPR programs and bottle bills in the race for sustainable recycling. We'll break down why 2D barcodes are becoming non-negotiable by 2027, how major food producers are phasing out artificial dyes, what Texas' veto of a sweeping THC ban means for hemp regulation, and why the state's new food additive warning labels may be built on shaky ground. So, starting off, tariffs are back in the spotlight, and this time they're taking a toll on capital planning in the packaging industry. In recent PMMI findings titled Navigating Tariff Changes, a CPG Perspective, executives from Dannon, Quality, Harvest Foods, American Botanicals, and Qualitech shared how new U.S. tariffs are causing widespread hesitation in packaging equipment investments. Scott Spencer, CEO of Quality Harvest Foods, revealed that his company has paused 70% of its capital plan, a direct result of being unexpectedly impacted by tariffs. With capital projects timelines stretching anywhere from 18 to 24 months, the risk of cost volatility is too high for many companies to ignore. Dannon North America's engineer director, Sean French, emphasized that his team is now limiting projects altogether, noting, "We'll do fewer projects, we'll do less work. I don't hear anybody saying, my life suddenly got better because of this new charge." This cautious approach is echoed across the board. To mitigate risk, many CPGs are now turning to transparency and shared cost models. Greg Flickinger, CEO of American Botanicals and Aloha Medicinals, questioned whether the burden of tariffs could be distributed across the supply chain, offering a more balanced solution for all involved. Meanwhile, contract language is under the microscope. John Doreen, COO at Qualitech, warned that agreements placing 100% of tariff costs on the buyer are likely to stall negotiations and damage vendor relationships. Instead, companies are pushing for more collaborative terms, like phased payments, rentals, and escalation clauses that account for country of origin and global sourcing concerns. As the regulatory landscape continues to shift, one thing is clear. Flexibility, clarity, and partnership are becoming non-negotiables in the equipment purchasing process. Moving on, in the push for more sustainable packaging, two recycling strategies are emerging as front runners. Extended producer responsibility, known as EPR, and traditional bottle deposit programs, more commonly called bottle bills. While both aim to increase recycling rates and reduce packaging waste, their approaches and their supporters differ widely. Packaging currently makes up between 28 to 30% of the U.S. municipal solid waste stream, and beverage containers alone represent nearly 30% of that total. With those figures in mind, some of the largest names in the beverage industry are stepping forward to share how they're responding to evolving legislation and shifting public expectations. PepsiCo, for instance, has come out strongly in support of EPR. David Allen, the company's vice president of global sustainable packaging, says that EPR offers a more comprehensive, flexible, and cost-effective approach to improving packaging, collection, and recycling, from packaging design to improved recycling rates. PepsiCo is also one of the many funders behind the Circular Action Alliance, the organization now tasked with administering newly passed EPR legislation in Maryland and Washington. But PepsiCo isn't the only brand speaking out. Primo Brands, the company behind household water names like Poland Spring and Pure Life, is advocating for a hybrid model that leverages both EPR and deposit return systems. According to a company spokesperson, EPR and DRS together will foster an optimized recycling collection system, adding that 35% of Primo's PET bottles in 2024 were made from recycled plastic, significantly above the industry average. Others in the sustainability space are offering more nuanced takes. Packaging expert Kim Connolly, writing on LinkedIn, points out that if the goal is long-term circular design, EPR has more transformational power. But for short-term impact, bottle bills have proven to deliver faster results, particularly in consumer-facing regional markets. That speed, however, comes with limitations. Critics of bottle bills argue that deposit systems can be expensive to maintain and duplicative if not supported by a broader recycling infrastructure. And as more states begin exploring legislative action, there's growing concern over fragmentation, with some brands calling for a harmonized national approach rather than a patchwork of local rules. Still, the core message across the board is clear. This isn't an either-or situation. Many beverage leaders believe that a blended model, one that pairs the upstream accountability of EPR with the collection efficiency of deposit systems, could offer the best chance of building a circular economy at scale. Moving on, starting in 2027, brands will no longer have the option of sticking with simple linear UPC barcodes. At GS1 Connect, industry leaders sounded the alarm. Sunrise 2027 marks a major shift where 2D barcodes must appear on packaging alongside or in place of traditional barcodes, and major retailers are already preparing to enforce compliance. Chuck Lasley, CTO at Dillard's, made it clear. We're going to give you a minimum requirement, but what you choose to add in addition to that is entirely up to you. That minimum requirement includes a GTIN, a serialized item code, and ideally a brand URL encoded using the GS1 digital link standard. This isn't just Dillard's, Wegmans is also gearing up. Their enterprise systems manager, Paul Warwinziniak, confirmed during a panel discussion that a supplier notice is in the works outlining compliance expectations and the value proposition behind the data-rich codes. GS1's broader goal, clearly spelled out in their Sunrise 2027 roadmap, is for POS systems to read both 1D and 2D barcodes by the end of 2027. This aligns with global trends. 2D codes are already being piloted across 48 countries, representing 88% of the world's GDP. Why the push? Unlike traditional barcodes, 2D formats like GS1 data matrix or QR codes can embed batch numbers, expiry dates, recall data, URLs, and more, turning packaging into a smart bridge between physical products and digital information. That means better inventory control, traceability, recall, readiness, consumer engagement, and even sustainability tracking. Early movers are already seeing the benefits. Brands like Puma, PepsiCo, and Procter & Gamble have begun testing GS1 digital link-enabled 2D barcodes. Retailers like Walmart and Wegmans are piloting scanner upgrades to handle the transition. Because checking readiness at POS goes beyond just beep, it means capturing and using rich data. There are challenges, of course. Retailers need image-based scanners, updated back-end systems, and investment in labeling alignment. But as GS1's digital link initiative gains momentum, the path forward is clear. Brands that embrace powerful connected packaging early may gain a competitive edge. Sunrise 2027 isn't a wish, it's coming. Whether you're a packaging engineer, supply chain manager, or brand marketer, the shift to 2D barcodes is now your responsibility. If your systems, suppliers, or packaging teams haven't started planning yet, it's time. Is your packaging ready to unlock digital traceability, consumer engagement, and compliance, or are you risking your spot on retail shelves? Moving on, artificial food dyes are falling out of favor. Two leading U.S. food producers, Kraft Heinz and General Mills, have announced ambitious plans to eliminate synthetic FD and C colorants from their products, signaling a major shift in the industry. Kraft Heinz, which reports that almost 90% of its U.S. portfolio already contains no artificial dyes, will remove the remainder from beverages and desserts, think Crystal Light, Kool-Aid, Jell-O, and jet-puffed marshmallows by the end of 2027. North America President Pedro Navillo noted, "The vast majority of our products use natural or NOR colors, and we've been on a journey to reduce our use of FD and C colors across the remainder of our portfolio." General Mills aims to eliminate artificial dyes from all of its cereals and foods served in K-12 schools by mid-2026, with a full U.S. product line phase-out by the end of 2027. The company states that 85% of its current offerings are already dye-free, framing the move as a natural progression to meet evolving consumer preferences. And the trend keeps growing. Nestle USA plans to complete removal of synthetic dyes from its U.S. foods and beverages by mid-2026, building on already dye-free status across over 90% of its portfolio. Conagra Brands will follow suit, targeting frozen foods by the end of 2025 and rolling out dye-free options in school and retail products through 2027. This industry-wide transformation aligns with broader health and regulatory momentum. In April, FDA Commissioner Marty Makary and HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced federal efforts to eliminate synthetic dyes by 2026, following the FDA's ban of Red 3 due to cancer concerns. Several states, including California, West Virginia, and Texas, have already enacted bans or labeling requirements for artificial dyes in schools and packaged foods. Recent public polling shows roughly 2/3 of Americans support limiting or removing these ingredients. Manufacturers are increasingly turning to natural alternatives such as pigments derived from beets, algae, radishes, purple sweet potatoes, and even insects to meet both regulatory demands and consumer expectations. For food industry professionals, the takeaway is clear. Synthetic dyes are on their way out, and staying ahead requires reformulation strategies, supplier alignment, and proactive adaptation. Reflect on what this evolution means for your brand. Moving on, in a late-night move, Texas Governor Greg Abbott vetoed Senate Bill 3, which would have banned all hemp-derived THC products, including Delta 8 and Delta 9 variants, across the state. Instead, he's directing lawmakers to craft a more nuanced regulatory framework modeled after the state's alcohol laws. Senate Bill 3, championed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, has passed both chambers and would have imposed criminal penalties on the possession, sale, and distribution of THC-infused edibles, vapes, and beverages. But Abbott flagged the bill for legal flaws, noting it likely violates federal hemp statutes and would be tied up in court for years, leaving citizens and farmers in limbo. Abbott's veto message emphasized the importance of preserving the state's budding hemp industry, employing more than 53,000 Texans and generating an estimated $4 to $8 billion annually while striving to protect public safety. Instead of an outright ban, he wants regulations that include age restrictions, child-resistant packaging, marketing limitations, sales permits, and enforcement by the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission. Support was swift from the Texas Hemp Business Council, which called the veto a victory for jobs and consumer safety. But Lieutenant Governor Patrick voiced disappointment, accusing the governor of undermining law enforcement and families affected by high THC products, and suggested that Abbott may actually be opening the door to recreational marijuana legalization. Looking ahead, a special legislative session begins July 21st, where lawmakers will debate Abbott's proposed regulatory blueprints in hopes of enacting a legally sound, enforceable system by next fall. Abbott's veto sends a strong signal. Banning THC isn't the solution, responsible regulation is. As the July session is in progress, the industry and policymakers must ask, can Texas establish clear, enforceable rules that protect kids and consumers while preserving economic growth and avoid sending users into unregulated markets? And we made it to our final story. Texas is set to introduce the nation's first warning labels on packaged foods containing certain dyes and additives, not about sugars or fat, but specific chemicals. Starting in 2027, any product featuring one of more than 40 targeted additives must carry a label stating it's not recommended for human consumption. Partially hydrogenated oils, red dye number 4, and red dye number 3 are already restricted in the U.S., while others like bleaching agents such as ADA may be exempt under federal rules. Thomas Galligan of the Center for Science in the Public Interest questioned the list building process. Warnings have to be accurate in order to be legal. Melanie Benish from the Environmental Working Group also warns against loopholes that could render some warnings unenforceable. Despite these flaws, public health advocates like Consumer Reports' Brian Ronholm see the law as a big win, aligning Texas with rising consumer demand and federal initiatives like RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again. The law even expands nutrition education in schools and colleges. Texas isn't acting alone. Georgia, West Virginia, and California have already introduced similar additive restrictions or labeling laws aimed at protecting children and pushing industry transparency. For food manufacturers, the takeaway is clear. This law throws a gauntlet, but also a puzzle. You'll need to decide whether to reformulate products, add a warning label, or shelve items in Texas. But beware. Legal challenges loom if those warnings are misleading or inaccurate. As you reflect, ask yourself, does your labeling strategy stand on solid scientific and regulatory ground, or could a misstep cost you more than compliance? This episode of SNEED-CAST is proudly sponsored by our SNEEDJet Infinity Inkjet Coater, a powerful and intuitive printer built to handle a wide range of substrates including glass, plastic, metal, flexible packaging, and glossy boxes. With 600 dpi, high-resolution printing, advanced networking capabilities, and seamless control of a single CPU or laptop, the Infinity lets you code smarter, not harder. Like always, stay tuned for our next episode of SNEED-CAST Industry Update, and make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below to stay up to date with all of our great content, and let us know what topics you'd like to see us talk about here on the show. We look forward to hearing from you all. Bye, everyone.